They are now, okay, we're live across all social media. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, my ring light just went off. Okay, let's try this again. There you go. We are live across all social media platforms. We are about to have some amazing discussions in US immigration. You guys have to be here to hear all that we're about to discuss, latest updates, breaking news. I've reviewed the final rule, all 30 pages, the live update we shared yesterday, and the publication is supposed to go in the Federal Register notice today. So join in, and we're going to break down what's going on in US immigration, especially inside the United States. If you guys can see me, hear me fine, everything sounds good, please drop USA or the flag of the United States, please. Drop it across platforms. Let me be sure everybody can hear me and see me great. And of course, we are going to answer some of your questions. So make sure you stay tuned and drop your questions so we can, help you answer them. All right. So yesterday, USCIS released some new information discussing how they were going to. Let me just share my screen right here. On Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, USCIS released the policy memo talking about how they were going to add some people called special agents who had new law enforcement powers to their agency. And as I mentioned, I've reviewed the 30-page final rule that's supposed to be published today. And then it becomes codified into law. It becomes codified into law. So we're going to be looking at the 10 main regulatory changes that this final rule makes. I'm going to be explaining it really simply so that we can all understand, because I know these things can get a little complex, even for attorneys. So it's going to be really simplified for everybody to follow and understand. So just bear with us. Okay. If you guys can see me and hear me okay, please drop USA or US flag. I still don't have that signal across platforms. Please drop it for me and then let's just jump in. All right, let's start with this quick one pager that can set the tone for everything. So USCIS to add special agents with new law enforcement authorities. Those of you who've been following our pages across social media and for several months now, you know that a couple of months ago, maybe 3 months ago, we shared information on our social media pages when Christy Noem, who's the Secretary of Homeland Security, actually delegated immigration enforcement powers to USCIS. At the time, which was she delegated these powers to USCIS on May 2nd, 2025. It was just a secret memorandum, an internal memo that USCIS had access to. And we shared this and said, watch out, this is what's going on. So let's go back. We spoke about this because we did a live video session and we broke down everything when USCIS started, what its name was, at what point there were 3 arms of immigration. We talked about USCIS being an adjudications arm. We talked about CBP taking care of border enforcement for the United States, and ICE taking care of interior enforcement. Interior enforcement meaning they are deporting people, enforcing immigration laws inside the United States. USCIS, a benefits agency or an adjudications agency, they don't hold a gun. They are just looking at paperwork and approving or denying, and then they'll refer to other agencies if there has to be investigations that has to be done or there has to be some type of enforcement. They would not typically be the enforcement arm of USCIS. And so when on May 2nd, 2025, Christy Noem now delegated enforcement powers to USCIS became a cause of concern, because obviously that would cause a lot of mistrust within the United States, I mean, within immigrant, I mean, well, it would cause immigrants to mistrust the US immigration system because, okay, if I'm applying for a work permit or I'm applying for a green card, and then you can end up using deadly force or non-deadly force, or you can pursue me, or you can arrest me, and you can deport me when you're supposed to be just reviewing the application that I've submitted, then this could be a problem. So we discussed all of those things. We won't go, you can go back to some of our live sessions and you'll find this discussion. We went into it into detail. Today, I want to talk about, what the new memorandum did yesterday and the publication in the Federal Register notice, what that means. And then we can look at the 10 main regulatory changes that this has imposed. Okay. So the rule, essentially, as we said, USCIS has been traditionally an adjudications agency. They adjudicate all affirmative applications. There are two types of applications in the US. Okay. We have affirmative applications, we have defensive applications. Affirmative application is you are applying for something, you don't have an adversary or an opponent who's challenging you actively. It's just affirmative. You're not in deportation. There's nobody chasing you. You just want to apply, so you've applied. However, when it comes to defensive applications, immigration applications, the government is chasing you. They've placed you in deportation proceedings. They are already telling you, well, you should be deported. You should be removed from the United States. Now come to court and show cause why we should not deport you from the United States. When that happens, you must be on the defense, which is why you need defense deportation from being deported from the United States. When you are applying to USCIS, you should get a lawyer generally, but you are not necessarily, it's not an active adversary. The process is not adversarial in nature. It's not supposed to be, but it can end up being adversarial in nature, meaning confrontational, where like in court where you are being cross-examined. I put it to you, and didn't you do this? And you did that, and you did that, confronting you with bad evidence against you about your bad moral character. It's very confrontational in immigration court. Affirmative with USCIS, it's more gentle. It's like, okay, well, tell us why you qualify. And if we find anything, we'll let you know, but it's less confrontational. Okay, so, USCIS does the affirmative applications. They're looking at green cards, marriage-based green cards, naturalization. If you're trying to apply for US citizenship, trying to apply for a certificate of citizenship or a naturalization certificate. If you're trying to apply for an EAD work permit, asylum, advanced parole, TPS, all these affirmative applications you can do with USCIS. Immigration court also does a lot of green cards and some other applications, but some types of applications are outside that jurisdiction. They do not handle some type of applications. Now, USCIS, which is supposed to be this affirmative, very cool, very nice agency, which will just approve or deny or just refer you to immigration court if you have a problem. Now they are being given enforcement powers, which is similar to ICE. ICE, which is responsible for interior immigration enforcement, and then they're being given powers, which is identical to CBP, Customs and Border Protection, which is for border enforcement. When you're coming inside the United States at the airport, land port, there are custom officers that are there making sure that you have the proper documents to be allowed entry into the United States. And so, as we've already mentioned, these powers were delegated by DHS Secretary Christine Noem, May 2025 delegation 15,006. And so now, yesterday's rule, September 4th, it was an unpublished Federal Register notice. It's supposed to be published today, likely been published. I haven't checked if they published it, but it was supposed to go into publication today. And this would codify it into federal regulations, Code of Federal Regulations. Okay, now let's go on here. So the USCIS, their key new powers that have been granted to USCIS director, and the director delegates, which is officers under him who he wants to delegate, they can investigate civil, criminal, immigration violations which is within USCIS jurisdiction. So if there's any civil violation like marriage fraud, or there's any criminal immigration violation like some type of document fraud, maybe there is a false claim to US citizenship, you misrepresented that you're a US citizen when you are not. That's a type of criminal immigration violation, because it's a crime. Things there are just so many ways in which you can violate immigration laws, and it could either be civil or criminal. USCIS can investigate those things. They can arrest people. So if you go for your immigration interview and there's a problem, they can immediately arrest you. Okay, they can arrest you. Let me mention this. The names of the officers, they are called there they are. Okay. USCIS 1811 classified officers. These are going to be called special agents. So the USCIS is now authorized to expand its law enforcement authorities and newly minted USCIS 1811 classified officers. So these are 1811 classified officers. They're special agents, and they'll be empowered to do a lot of these things we're talking about. Okay. Now let me go back to what I was talking about. So now they can arrest people for crimes committed in their presence, for felonies, that you commit if they think that you will escape before they've obtained a warrant for your arrest. People who facilitate unlawful entry. So if you are helping people to lie to get visas to enter the United States, or you are helping smuggle people, that. And let me tell you how this practically happens. So, for example, you're coming in, and we see this in the past. We used to see this a lot. Well, no, I don't think I was even born, or but in the past, this used to happen, where people would come in with other people's passports prior to the biometric passports. They would come in because, okay, maybe two Ghanaian sisters or two Nigerian sisters, they look alike. And so one person enters, gives a passport to give to Ngozi to go and give to her sister, so that her sister can come with the same passport. And sister will also come in with the same passport. CBP will not notice that this person is not who is on the passport. And so the Ngozi who's coming in with that other person, that the person you're coming in with is not the true bearer of this passport, right? Like, they are not really the people identified, but they look really alike. And so if you are facilitating such unlawful entry of immigrants or migrants, that's a problem. They are going to be dealing with all those things. USCIS, I mean, these are things that are usually reserved for customs and border protection or patrol. Yeah, I always get confused about that. CBP, all P is P, right? Protection patrol. we'll verify that soon again. Okay, so USCIS can also detain and remove people, including expedited removal, where you don't get to see a judge. They can carry firearms if they're trained. They can use deadly, non-deadly force. They can make prosecution recommendations to DOJ, Department of Justice, for prosecution. Meaning you're going to be sent to immigration. You're going to be sent to court. You're going to be sent to court to be prosecuted. Not necessarily immigration court, but you're going to be sent to court. Yeah, and it's actually not immigration court, because Department of Justice is, well, I believe EUIR is under Department of Justice. So, well, it could be immigration court, or it could be another type of court. And then, because sometimes some of the things that people do, it will have some criminal implications, it will have immigration implications. So first of all, they will be tried in criminal court, and then after they're handed over to immigration to be tried and then deported if that becomes necessary. USCIS is also creating law enforcement training standards for their personnel, like ICE and CBP academies. All right. Now, from what you've heard so far, this is transforming USCIS from a purely benefits agency to a law enforcement body. And so there's going to be increased risk of law enforcement consequences, not just case denials. Okay, now let me tell you guys about the changes. We're going to move into the changes, but before we move into the changes, the publication of the final rule summarized regulatory changes under 10 separate categories. We're going to go into what these 10 separate categories are and what they mean for everybody. So the Code of Federal Regulations is what has been amended. Okay, so this new enforcement powers, it's now reflected in the Code of Federal Regulations. Okay, Code of Federal Regulations is usually written by agencies like DHS, USCIS, ICBP under authority that Congress gives them in the Immigration and Nationality Act. Code of Federal Regulations spells out how agencies carry out what the Immigration and Nationality Act allows these bodies to do: procedures, definitions, who can exercise what powers, what kind of training is required. But let me say that the Immigration and Nationality Act is actually the federal statute passed by Congress that covers immigration. So that's kind of like the umbrella statute for immigration. Okay. And it contains broad powers and legal authority. And then the Code of Federal Regulations is the agencies themselves who will now spell out how these agencies will carry out what is in the Immigration and Nationality Act. Okay, so you move from the Immigration and Nationality Act, then you come to see Code of Federal Regulations, which has more specifics about how things will be carried out. Okay, so the Immigration and Nationality Act essentially grants authority in broad strokes. The Code of Federal Regulations will assign and structure that authority. Now, Immigration and Nationality Act is passed by Congress, right? As I've said, and that means that if anything wants to change, it has to go through Congress. By the Code of Federal Regulations, USCIS can obviously make their own regulations so long as it's not contradicting the Immigration and Nationality Act or Constitution, or it's not unlawful. All right, now let's start with the main changes. Let me share my screen here. I'm going to be sharing. Okay, there you go. This is the 30-page final rule. I have already, I know what we're going to be discussing. Let me see if I can, okay. I'm going to move on to move to page, I think it's from page 10. Let's see, hold on. Let me go here. Okay, yeah, right here. If you come here, this is, guys, many people are not going to do this for you. Okay, so pay attention to, I'm showing you exactly what the law says. So it's not like, oh, he said, she said. You're getting it directly from what the final rule is. This is not from any other source, but the actual final rule. Okay, so let's look at what is happening. Now look at this is a summary of the major provisions of the regulatory action. Okay, it says here that the authority to investigate, it gives the umbrella things. Now the major provisions are 10 major provisions that have been amended, or codified, I should say. So that's what we're going to be looking at. I have to go back to my iBooks. Okay, so let's just go to the first one. Okay, so what's the first thing that the new final rule does about the law or the enforcement powers of USCIS? So the first thing says that they define law enforcement and or other official in the Code of Federal Regulations. So it says that DHS is adding language to the definition of law enforcement official or other official to include a delegation by the secretary regarding the administration of criminal justice. This change is intended for clarity, is already permitted by statute. Okay, so essentially what that means is that it's expanding the definition to include USCIS officials who are designated by the director, and those people can administer criminal justice in the US. They can also set training standards, immigration training standards. It means that USCIS can, as an agency, decide who qualifies as a law enforcement official, who qualifies as a law enforcement official. And it puts them on the same footing as CBP and as ICE. Okay, so these are all law enforcement officials now. These special agents by USCIS, they will be law enforcement officials. Let me pull this here. Okay. All right. Now the second thing, let me add that for the first thing, the definition of law enforcement, it also does two key things that it means that it's going to let USCIS, the USCIS director, and remember that the USCIS director can also redelegate to other offices in USCIS. And so pretty much lets USCIS do two key things that are already being done by ICE and CBP. Number one, it will treat certain USCIS designees or the special agents as law enforcement or other official for the purposes of criminal justice. And number two, it will decide what counts as basic immigration law enforcement training, including what is substantially equivalent to CBP and ICE academies. Okay, that's it there. Now let's move on to the second one. The second major regulatory change is that disposition is entitled Disposition of Criminal Cases. Disposition of criminal cases. Let me go back to the first one. It looks like I didn't cover it enough. Let me go back to the first one. Okay, so CBP ICE leadership, before they could certify who had arrest, warrant, and firearms authority under these sections. And USCIS would typically rely on ICE for criminal enforcement. If there's any criminal issue, USCIS will contact ICE. And practically speaking, a lot of the USCIS officers, you'll have USCIS on top, and then ICE will sometimes be at maybe at the ground floor or the top floor. They're in the same building. So if there's any issue, they just call ICE, and ICE is down there to arrest you. And these arrests used to happen. I mean, they've been happening in the past, but not that often. Okay, so ICE is, they would refer any criminal enforcement to ICE. Now, USCIS will have special agents. Once these special agents are trained and certified, they can use the same types of authorities that ICE uses. If they have to arrest you, they won't call ICE to come and arrest you. They'll do so themselves. The special agents will do so themselves. All right. Yeah, there's a lot more, but let's move on to the second thing. Let's move on. Disposition of criminal cases. Okay. So USCIS can start investigations into criminal immigration law violations. Now it's USCIS officers, not just ICE, which can now initiate criminal investigations. USCIS can now initiate. They don't only just say, oh, ICE, can you take care of this? USCIS can do the initiation themselves. If they suspect anything on your record, if they suspect that there is a crime that has been committed, anything that qualifies as a crime, then they're going to be handling that initiation of investigation. Okay, then the third is arrest for crimes in an officer's presence. This, you have to be careful about this. You cannot go and commit crimes in front of an officer, perjury, or anything that is a crime. Even if you don't know is a crime, you are supposed to know. There's a law saying ignorantia juris neminem excusat. is Latin for ignorance of the law is not an excuse, because otherwise everybody will say, oh, I didn't know. As soon as you are caught, you say, oh, I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know. And how they're going to determine who knows and who didn't know. So everybody's presumed to know, so that we're all on a level playing field. All right. So yeah, USCIS can, they'll have their special agents who will have authority to arrest people for crimes committed in the presence of a special agent. Then the fourth major regulatory change under this new final rule published today is that there will be arrests for any felony while performing duties. USCIS can arrest somebody for any felony if they're on duty, and the USCIS officer does not have time to get a warrant and feels like the person is going to run away before they can get a warrant. So they are going to be given emergency powers to make felony arrests like other federal agents have. Like, now let me give you some examples of felonies. Something like rape. Felonies are just very serious crimes. They carry a sentence of more than 1 year in prison, so you want to be careful. Things like murder. Murder is a popular felony. Manslaughter, rape, sexual assault, robbery, drug offenses, fraud, immigration-related felonies like alien smuggling. There's bribery. Immigration-related felonies are like document fraud with intent to gain immigration benefits, certain re-entry after removal. Okay, so they can arrest you for a felony while they're performing their duty. It doesn't mean that the felony, you have to have committed it in their presence. You could have done it. Once they find out, oh, okay, so you're a felon, they'll have the power to arrest you and to take action, enforcement action against you. All right, now the fifth major regulatory change is USCIS can now arrest for facilitating unlawful entry of aliens or non-citizens into the United States. This we discussed. If you look here, the director of USCIS as a position that may designate, so the special agent will have authority to arrest people if you bring in, induce, transport, or you harbor certain aliens. So now it means that if you are even living with somebody who's undocumented, or harboring, meaning you're just helping keep them, you're giving them shelter for the purposes of unlawfully entering the United States, you can be arrested. USCIS can arrest you. They don't have to wait for CBP or ICE. Okay. Now this fifth regulatory change. Okay, so USCIS can now arrest smugglers and harborers. If you are helping others to enter or stay in the United States unlawfully, USCIS themselves can arrest you, the special agent. So these powers that were once tied to ICE, CBP, Patrol, or Border Patrol, they are now extended to these special USCIS agents. The sixth major area of regulatory change is right here: power and authority to execute search warrants and service of arrest warrants. That's the sixth area. This means that USCIS, they can now execute search warrants, serve arrest warrants for immigration and non-immigration violations. They can act like federal law enforcement. They can search your property. They can serve arrest orders. But remember, searching your property, your constitutional rights attached. We've discussed it here several times. Everybody is protected against unreasonable searches and seizures. And so if you're in your home and USCIS comes to knock at your door and says, well, you just filed an application, can you open up? We want to see if Rebecca, you listed her as your wife, is truly in bed. And they'll come and knock on your door at 6 a.m. because they're doing a home inspection, right? And they've been doing this, the home size visits, they've been doing it. But now they can execute search warrants. If there's a search warrant, they can come in and search. But depending on whether it's a judicial warrant or an administrative warrant, that's when you decide what to do. We have already learned several times, judicial warrant signed by a judge with your name, that you have to comply. Administrative warrant, you don't have to comply because that is not by a judge. So you have the right to say no. Now, if you have an immigration application pending, then it can be a little dicey because you're seeking a benefit, and if you don't prove what you need to prove, your case is going to be denied. So make sure you speak with an attorney in those circumstances to figure out how to handle these situations. Okay, now let's move to the seventh major regulatory change that is brought forth by this new final rule, carrying firearms. So USCIS officers, they can now carry guns if they are properly trained and certified. Okay. Yeah. So USCIS is pretty much transitioned from a benefit-only agency to one where some of the officers are armed. A USCIS officer who is armed to carry guns. Very interesting. Number 8, the 8th regulatory change. We're almost through. We are going up to 10. It's just 10 of them. Number 8 is standards for law enforcement activities. Number 8, what it says. So USCIS officers, they may use, oh my gosh, this is the part where I'm like, oh my God. USCIS officers have been granted, or the director can designate powers to these special agents, and they can use deadly and non-deadly force. Imagine a USCIS officer pushing somebody on the floor using deadly force, maybe because the person did something, and so he's trying to protect himself, or things that other people are in danger or whatever. Just like if you guys remember John Floyd, was he called John Floyd, the guy who died because the police used some type of deadly force. That's the type of law enforcement deadly force we're talking about. It can end your life. Deadly force, non-deadly force, so long as they're trying to protect an immigration officer or other people that are in danger. And USCIS can also initiate vehicular pursuits to catch people who are running away and who are attempting to avoid apprehension. People who are running away and attempting to avoid apprehension. This is all like a movie. This is all like a movie. This is all like a movie. I mean, USCIS can now chase people, like the police. USCIS can now chase people like the police, and I'm not sure why all of this is needed. I mean, well, let's see how it's all going to play out. Let's see how it's all going to play out. But it doesn't look good so far. I don't know how I don't know how and why this is necessary. As if CBP, the police, they are doing enough. They are doing enough. I'm not sure why all USCIS also needs to start chasing people in vehicular pursuits and using deadly force and non-deadly force. Is there not enough? We're already suffocating under law enforcement, because ICE already there's a lot of 287G programs. We talked about it right here. They've empowered local police to take care of immigrants. And so, okay, so yeah, the US is about to turn into a movie scene with USCIS officers being granted the authority to use deadly force, non-deadly force in situations where the designated immigration officer or other persons are in danger. And sometimes these law enforcement officers get it wrong. There might be no danger. Some of them, we've seen a lot happen in modern US history. Sometimes some of the officers would just see some of these people just hate the color of their skin and decide to use deadly force against them when that it's not warranted. But I must say that, we respect law enforcement officers. They are doing good work, brave work, because they're doing work that many people won't do. Obviously, there are some very good law enforcement officers who keep our community safe, and we appreciate them very much. This is never to talk down on the work they are doing at all, because we value their service to our communities. This is just concerning within the context of immigration, because some people could take advantage. So let's see how this will play out. Okay, so this is number 8, major regulatory change. That's what's happening. Then number 9, criminal search warrant and firearms policies. Okay, number 9, it means that USCIS, they are going to be setting policies on searches, seizures, and firearms. And they're going to create training equivalents to ICE and CBP. Yeah, they're going to train officers on how to search, how to seize, how to use firearms, all these things, just like CBP training. How they have all these the training academies in CBP and ICE. And so USCIS is going to develop its own law enforcement academy and training standards, where these special agents are going to be put through the training academy to learn, to get the requisite training, so they can get basic immigration law enforcement authority. All right, then the last thing is number 10 is pretty much technical edit and clarity. They just decided to remove outdated organizational references. So there's a term, Border and Transportation Security Directorate. They just changed it to Department of Homeland Security. Just to it's a legacy term. In the past it was used. Now they've just changed it to reflect changes of today. Oh my goodness. Wow. So these are the 10 major changes when we talk about USCIS being given full law enforcement powers. We've run through in this live session the 10 major regulatory actions. Okay, that's what we just went through. Let me just show you guys. Let's go back to let me just summarize by reading this part again. It says the law enforcement authorities delegated to the director of USCIS include, but are not limited to, they will now have authority to investigate alleged civil and criminal violations of the immigration laws within the jurisdiction of USCIS. They can issue an executable search and arrest warrant. They can detain and remove aliens or non-citizens. They can make recommendations for prosecutions or other appropriate actions when deemed advisable. And so you see, it says to reflect the new authority that's been delegated, this final rule, it's amending regulations to codify or to put into law USCIS law enforcement authorities commensurate or which is equal to authorities previously only delegated to ICE and CBP regarding the enforcement of immigration laws. Okay, this is, and you see, this is not a replacement power. This is in addition to the powers that USCIS current regulatory authority to designate, individuals or a class of individuals that's a special agent to arrest non-citizens, for immigration violations or immigration-related felonies, issue immigration detainers, inspect non-citizens seeking admission into the United States. Into the admission to the United States. Okay, this will expand upon these existing law enforcement related powers to include the 10 that we just spoke about. Okay, so that's it right there. Today we're going to have to close early. Let's look. I have the previous, I think we shared that right here also. The delegation powers that Chrissy Noem signed. It's across. It's on our social media pages. We won't go over them again here. They can order expedited removals. They can investigate civil crimes, civil violations. I'm sorry, not civil crimes, civil violations of immigration laws, criminal violations. Okay, yeah, it's all on our social media pages. If you want the full memo, internal memo that delegated the powers, we've shared videos on it as well. You can find live sessions, short videos explaining what everything means. Okay, so let me see. We have a lot more. We could talk about the anti-Semitism. There's another new memo that came yesterday talking about public charge. Um, but we don't have too much time. We don't have too much time, so we won't go into that. Let's take a few questions and then we can call it a day. You guys, um, Dominic is asking a question about some ticketing issues. This is Dominic of P. Opus with Turkson. Please contact us and I can understand what you are looking for and see how we can help you. Okay. Yeah, you have to do the right thing. When it comes to ticketing these days, if you don't do the right thing, you will, when you come, you'll be immediately deported. That's what we call expedited removal. That one, you don't get to see an immigration judge. You are deported in 2 hours, 3 hours. Your feet, that's what they call, your eyes will see Canaan, but your leg won't step there. You get to the airport, they find that there's a problem. They just find the next flight back to your home country. If the next flight is in 8 hours, within 8 hours, you're gone. So make sure don't play with this, because sometimes had I known is always at last. So yeah, you can contact us and I can speak with you and find out what's going on. Mercy NTS on YouTube says, I have a question. Do people with asylum case pending, waiting for immigration letter, but have the work permit and SSN, can they travel inside of America? We've addressed this. I've shared videos on it. Christy Noem said something some months ago. She said, undocumented people, the only place they should be flying is back to their home country. I shared videos on it right here. It was a live session I did, and I shared a video and I shared what Christy Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, said. She's empowering some of these people at these local airports within the United States to be looking out for people who are undocumented, detain them where necessary. You know, even cases where you honestly should not be detained, you'll be detained now, because all people who entered without inspection now subject to mandatory detention. So you can have what you have, but I wouldn't risk it if I were you. But yeah, go back and check all those videos I shared, and then you'll get more. You're likely to get more insight on that. Okay. Prince, thank you for joining again. He says, check your DM, Prince Fiajibe. Okay, we'll do that. Thank you. Okay, let me see if there's somebody on Instagram. Travel ban beneficiaries at the NVC stage. This is from Amani Al-Dabani. He says, any advices? Contact us. There is a travel ban, June 2025 travel ban, 19 countries banned, 12 have full bans, both immigrants, non-immigrant visas. I believe 7 countries have partial bans. So out of these things, there are some exceptions. You know, we discuss all these things here. Some people are not covered by the ban. Some people, the ban doesn't apply to them. And even if the ban applies to them, there's some exceptions. So you could fall within one of the exceptions, or you could be exempt, or whatever. So just contact us and we'll review that and help you. Angela Ba V says, is Ghana scheduling interviews for F2B with DQ 2025? Guys, this I've shared. I've shared on our social media pages how to check, the new scheduling. Let me do that right now. I'm going to do that for you. Let's look at, there's a new scheduling system. I'm just going to share. Hold on. Okay, let me try. Let me do this here. I'm going to show you guys um, immigrant, and I'll tell you where they've reached in the line. Okay, at the and I can do this for we can do this for countries worldwide. You want to know where they are scheduling your case, National Visa Center. Where the embassy, the scheduling status by it's more by the embassy or by the post. Okay, let me share the screen here. So we're going to look at this is the scheduling tool. I don't know if you guys can see my screen. Now, let's see. F2B is the adult son or daughter unmarried of a lawful permanent resident. Okay. So let's see. Let's try Accra. And that's going to be family sponsored. Okay. Hold on. Sometimes yeah, it's Accra is the correct thing. Let's see. Yeah, Accra is the correct country site. Okay, there you go. NVC is currently scheduling documentarily complete cases with visas available from July 2025. Sometimes this scheduling tool, to be honest, I sometimes see some errors in there. So I wouldn't be too, sometimes, yeah, there's some glitches on the system. Let's try Lagos. Let's see if, okay, Lagos is October 2024. Let's try Abuja. It's still, okay, no. All right. Yeah, Lagos is, I believe, where they do and the immigrant visa processing. So let's try, I'm trying to remember another city, but yeah, so you just put the name of the city there. Maybe let's do Freetown. Let's do Freetown. Is that Sierra Leone? Yeah. Let's try Freetown. Okay. Freetown is September 2025. They are really on time. Let's do Johannesburg. And then we go there. Okay, Johannesburg is also on time. Let's see. Let's start with, let me see if there's yeah, let's do Addis Ababa also. July 2025. Okay. Well, yeah, these are family sponsored preference categories. As for the F1, which is the unmarried son or daughter of a US citizen, F2A, spouse and minor children of green card holders, F2B, adults and married children of green card holders, F3, married children of US citizens, then F4 siblings of US citizens. Now let me go to immediate relative for Accra. And we have, yeah, this is where the backlog is, August 2023 DQ. For immediate relatives, that's spouses, minor children, and parents of US citizens. All right, guys. Yeah, I see there's a lot of questions. We cannot answer everyone. Please give us a call and then we can assist you with all your US immigration needs. Okay. We can assist you with your US immigration needs. We work with clients all around the US, all 50 states, not a barrier, and around the world. All right, let me see. I'm trying to see if I can get a few more questions that we can answer. Okay, somebody on TikTok says, can you explain? So Jace, she says, explain N600K. So N600K is a type of application for US citizenship. And when you are successful, you get a certificate of citizenship. And it's under INA section 322. It's for a child who has derived citizenship and is living outside the United States. So usually they're under the age of 18. They have, for example, a parent who is a US citizen and the parent is a US citizen and the child is in the legal and physical custody of the U.S. citizen parent. Okay, and then you should be able to show that the U.S. citizen parent has some physical presence requirements met. They've been in the U.S. for at least 5 years after they turned 14 years old, and so the child is a U.S. citizen. Yeah, the child can derive, can get U.S. citizenship from this. Yeah, but this is about the N600K, right? But you still need to go through screening to make sure the child you're trying to apply for actually qualifies to file this N600K. And the good thing about this N600K is that your parents can file it who's a US citizen, your grandparents. You can also trace eligibility through your US citizen grandparents for the child. So that's a good thing. All right, guys, it's been a pleasure hosting you today. You guys, if you haven't followed AK Poku Law and you're watching this video, just click follow. It doesn't cost $50. It's $0. Zero. So go ahead and give us a follow for we share timely updates. So make sure you're following us and you're sharing our sessions. There's so many people that are hiding under their beds and they need help. When you share it, they'll go and watch it. So share it, because now immigration is, people can't even talk about their problems. They're afraid. So share this video. Sean Williams said, any updates on Dignity Act? Oh my dear, we went over this Dignity Act right here on this platform. We did live videos. I did short videos, and I explained to you, I told you, these things, I highly doubt they were going to pass. I gave you empirical evidence, legal evidence, historical evidence, and I told you the chances of these things passing, unfortunately, are very slim. So there's no update. You see, these people, Alex Padilla, he came up with this, whatever, registry bill. And then the other one, Maria Salazar, and the Escobar woman, they came up with Dignity Act, and now they vanished. Well, I'm gonna now that you mention, I'll see if there's any updates in Congress, if there's been any movement. Maria Salazar, let me see if I can find a quick update, because sometimes I'm able to track the bill in Congress. I'm able to track it either in the House of Representatives or in let me see. If I'm able to find it now, we can, don't worry, I'll update you once there's any information on it. They just came up with all these things and then just went back to bed, because there's likely no new updates. Okay, good. I found the tracker right here. Let's talk about it. Let me see here. Let me just share with you guys. Oh my goodness. How do I share screen? Okay. Now let me, yeah, I'm trying to share my screen. Please bear with me. Okay, so we're going to track, this is Congress website. I'm sorry. All right, so this is the tracker. It's still at the introduce stage. Excuse me, please pardon me. The bill is still at the intro. It's just been, they're still at the introduction stage. You see, the Republican Salazar, Maria Elvira Salazar, she introduced this bill on July 15th, 2025. Guys, and look at this. The bill, the latest action, almost dead on arrival. The latest action is still the date she introduced it, July 15, 2025. It hasn't moved an inch. This bill, since July 15, 2025, has not moved an inch. So, I mean, well, you guys, I told you, contact your Congress people, your leaders, let them put pressure for them to vote and push this. Well, oh, look at this. This is this. It was referred to the Committee on the Judiciary, and in addition to the committees on Homeland Security, Ways and Means, Transportation, Education, Workforce, Oversight and Government, and Armed Services for a period to be subsequently determined by the Speaker. In each case, for consideration of such provisions as fall within the jurisdiction of the committee concerned. Let's look at what kind of actions. Yeah. After these bills were referred, you guys, you can see my screen. That's it. They were referred to all these committees. One, two. Yeah. They refer to all these committees and no movement so far. Let's keep our fingers crossed and see if they're going to be doing anything. I showed you how to contact your representative. Contact them and let them know to vote. If you want them to vote for the bill, definitely let them know, write them, call them, and then let's see, maybe we'll get some movement soon. But I don't know if this is something you should worry about at this time, because to be honest, okay. All right, guys, I see you have a lot of questions, but I have to hop off now. My next meeting time is up. So been a pleasure talking to all of you. Please follow our pages, like this video, comment if you've enjoyed the session. Please comment with USA, comment AK Poku Law, and follow our pages. If you need our help, contact us 802-780-0564. You can call, text, message, WhatsApp. You can also DM us. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Take care, and I'll see you hopefully next week. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye, TikTok. Bye-bye, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Thank you for joining.